Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel and this is the Hour of the Raven, your channel for everything Ravenloft, RPG, Dungeons and Dragons, and horror. In a brief break from our exploration of the Land of the Mists, today we will cover the new domain of Kartakass as featured in the Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft and its Dark Lord Harkon Lucas, and provide some commentary on the changes introduced for the 5th editions of Dungeons and Dragons. Are you ready? So let's explore this new version of Kartakass and discover what new horrors are revealed by the mists of the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Hour of the Raven. The new Kartakass is a Ravenloft domain that explores themes of dark fantasy and gothic horror. The domain continues to be ravaged by monstrous lupine beasts, but now the entire society is marked by the incessant search for fame and glory in an obsessed dream. The main horror inspiration of the new Kartakass is the delirium of seeking fame at any cost, and the manipulation, betrayal, corruption and despair that comes from the rise and fall of these artists. Movies that deal with obsession and the price of fame, even if they are not linked to horror, can be important sources of inspiration for this domain, such as Sunset Boulevard, Black Swan, A Star is Born, or Mulholland Drive. In addition to the search for glory and recognition, the domain still has the theme of lycanthropy and savagery in its background, with artistic passions fused with bestial savagery and music mixed with wolf howls. Here, even wild beasts and plants seem to long for a greater purpose and meaning, and lycanthropy manifests as a representation of uncontrolled passions and obsession, as untamed feelings of those who give in to the most bestial and wild side. Kartakass remains a dark fantasy domain, but there is a significant change in the focus of the proposed narratives. The classic Kartakass was once a rural domain, surrounded by dense forests, where small villages were dominated by a peculiar culture focused on music. Hidden among society were the wolf-wares, creatures that were intelligent wolves and predators that found a way to metamorphose into humans, to live and hunt, hidden among their prey. The domain took cultural inspiration from medieval Germany and Scandinavia, and drew directly from the source of dark fairy tales and folklore, especially those involving wolves. The new Kartakass maintains some of its aspects, such as the relevance of music in society and politics, but instead of a rural and medieval society, the domain becomes a sort of Hollywood from the Land of the Mists, with an entire population that comes to its cities, living on dreams and illusions of fame and glory. The wolf-wares are also left aside, and in their place come the loup-garous, stronger werewolves whose lycanthropy infection is only cured with the death of the original lycanthrope that contaminated a victim. Kartakass ends up being the main domain of 5th edition dealing with the theme of lycanthropy and werewolves, but it's a shame that this is just a backdrop for the domain's true theme, the obsessed quest for glory and fame. Kartakass is described as a destination surrounded by forests, but whose community are centers of the arts that attract a diverse and multicultural population. All types of ethnicities, race and culture can be found in its cities, and people stand out for clothes styles that exalt their artistic gifts, charisma and performance. As in the past version, Kartakass does not have a central government, and each city has, as its political leader, the Meister Singer, a leader who represents the entire local artist community. Its cities, however, are not restricted to musical arts, and Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft presents some new locations in Kartakass, that explore other types of arts. The city of Amherst is located on an elevation surrounded by forest, which hides a large network of caves. The entire city is called the Fox Theatre, and it's a living stage, home to a renowned acting school. The city is the stage, and the underground tunnels and caves house the actors' home, the backstage and gears of this complex stage. Its dedicated students and teachers are among the best, and they dedicate themselves to an intense method of interpretation. They prepare for 7 weeks before each play, living in the city above almost all the time in character, and improvising when they meet strangers, until they finally perform a complex play for a week, all over the city. The intrigues and disputes over roles and stardom often result in tragedies, and the intensity of method acting drives many crazy. Another new addition to Kartakass is the coastal city of Medria, where magic and theatrics mix. Here are situated arcane workshops and laboratories that aim to create dramatic magical effects. Its population is accustomed to wonder and danger, with large explosions, macabre sounds, or wandering animated puppets being a constant in this community. The two cities that already existed in the previous version of Kartakass domain return with slightly reinterpretations. Harmony is the city that is the focus of music in Kartakass. The Harmonic Hall stands out as the main music school in the domain, and the Harmony Amphitheater is one of the most renowned and sought-after stages. The city's nightlife is marked by the exclusive Crystal Club, built in a natural geode. This venue is restricted to members, and the invitation to play on its stage is a great honor. Those who disappoint their demanding audience are sometimes banned out of shame, but the truth is that this club is frequented by werewolves, and sometimes the artists are devoured by the audience. Skald, the largest city in Kartakass, is now a great center of commerce and creativity, and a stage for all kinds of art and stardom. Different theaters, venues, and stages attract artists looking for the possibility of sudden fame, and there is a large audience thirsty and fawning over their favorite stars. Most of those who arrive in the city end up being deluded and can quickly become prey to agents, establishment proprietors, famous and envious artists, and end up taken over by vice, crime, sinister bargains, and supernatural monsters. The domain also features a new location, Wildersong Wood. This forest is inhabited by dangerous beasts who act boldly when hunting their prey. The bark of its trees has a surprising ability to echo sounds, causing them to reverberate throughout the forest. The most terrifying and sinister feature of these woods occurs at dusk, when an ominous rhyme of a song can be heard, coming from an unknown source. The song is never completed, and it is said that those who hear it must immediately join in the singing, lest they meet a supernatural and inexplicable death, with many being found with their neck broken. The Kartakass map also features a few new locations with evocative names but without any description. Locations such as the Goblin Graves, Point Hallucination, Tragedy Stage, Lost Muse Lake, and House of Illusions can be found, with the Goblin Graves and the Catacombs perhaps being a reference to the adventure Feast of Goblins and the Witch Hadaga, who undergo a reinterpretation in the adventure series Mist Hunters, and whose adventure hook also indicates the presence of the Crown of Dagon. Other returning characters are Harkon Lucas' children. Akriel and Casimir are not werewolves as their father, and have different views about Harkon. Akriel is a talented artist who idolizes Harkon and wishes to follow in her father's footsteps by becoming a great artist. Her talent makes her a big star, but she is not cursed like her father. She has earned the public's adoration and her father's envy and contempt. In the classic setting, Ekriel was a wolf-wearer who wished to usurp the power of Harkon Lucas and become the Dark Lord of Kartakass. She is the lover of the Cloudhain Froth, Dr. Dominiani, and one of the members of the Gundarakite conspiracy, key to the plot of the adventure Feast of Goblins. In the 5th edition version, Casimir rejects his father's path and wants to distance himself from him, but Harkon does not allow him to move away from his influence and does not allow him to leave his domain. In the classic Kartakass, he is also manipulated by his father and rejects his nature as a wolf-wearer, but ends up meeting a tragic end in the novel Heart of Midnight. Kartakass has as its Dark Lord Harkon Lucas, who undergoes a considerable change in its characterization. In the past, the wolf-wearer could transform into any gender or appearance he desired, but his best known form was that of a charismatic minstrel, always wearing a goatee and a neatly trimmed mustache. In this form, the bard often dressed elegantly, with an embroidered jacket, cape, tall boots, a large blue feathered hat, and his distinctive monocle. Now, as a werewolf, he no longer has the ability to assume as many forms as possible, and his human appearance is now of a black man with a thick beard and a deceptively friendly smile. The style of his clothes changes, becoming more colorful and vibrant. Although he retains a hat, he loses his characteristic monocle, and now has a red fiddle as his main instrument. Harkon Lucas also has a reinterpretation of his history and personality. The Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft does not provide statistics for Dark Lords, but it does establish that Harkon Lucas has the same statistics as a loup-garou. He does not undergo involuntary transformations like any other werewolf, and he is a dangerous manipulator and liar. Harkon is charismatic and friendly, but hides sinister ambitions and a great desire for power. He has a large ego and vanity, and believes he is destined for greatness. He desires recognition, and believes that it is a matter of time before he makes himself loved and adored by everyone. He is an intense man, and likes to share his passion with others, but his interest can also quickly go out like a flame. He doesn't handle rejection well, and those who reject his friendship and love soon will learn his insatiable hunger. He is thirsty for fame and recognition, but the dark powers torment him, causing his great artistic achievements to be quickly forgotten. He wishes to gain power through the recognition of his talents and the adoration of the people. As a populist, he believes this is the only true form of power, but his curse is to never achieve it. His talented musical works and artistic feats impress the public, but before long, the people of Kartakass forget about his achievements, as if a fog occupied their memory. Frustrated, he devotes himself even more fervently to his obsession, believing he just needs to find the right inspiration and angle to find glory and greatness. He has an eye for talent and finds the most skilled rising artists, seeking to drink from the source or take advantage of their ideas. He approaches these artists as a patron and friend, and his proteges quickly rise to stardom. His friendship comes at the price of corruption, and he chooses the best artists to infect with lycanthropy through his cursed necklace, and use the secret of this condition to blackmail and manipulate them. Too much success may attract his envy, however, or he may quickly become bored with his new proteges. Soon they will know his darker side, and some will know his fury and fangs. Harkon Lucas' past also undergoes major changes. In this new version, Harkon Lucas is a loup-garou werewolf with great ambition for power. He attempted to transform his werewolf pack as a tool to achieve his goals, but their savage, bestial side thwarted his plans, and he retaliated in fury. He killed some of his companions, but had to flee, wounded and banished from his pack. Having to live now among humans, he found a way to manipulate those he judged as inferior, and found a new way to achieve power. Using his great charisma and artistic talent, he won the hearts and minds of the people, rising as a star and idol. His great influence on the population soon became a danger for the rulers, who saw the power of this charismatic and populist figure. The authorities tried to arrest him discreetly, but the people rose to defend him. When Crow agents came again, he faked his own death, and the news led the population to violent rebel. In weeks of revolt, the kingdom was taken over by chaos, and the population marched against the palace, carrying Harkon's coffin in their arms. There, the king received them on the walls of the castle, and tried to calm the crowd. With a repentant speech, he asked for forgiveness and made concessions, and it seemed that the situation would be controlled, when a terrible lupine beast rose from the coffin, destroying the lid. In front of everyone, the werewolf tore apart and devoured the monarch. Drenched in blood, Harkon Lucas returned to his human form and took the crown, and the population, overcome by the emotion and euphoria of the massacre, greeted him as the new king. However, his plans of power were swallowed by a strange beast, who took him to the demiplane of dread. In these lands he was an unknown stranger, and he had to begin his plans once again to become an absolute leader. However, no matter how much he strives and achieves results through his works of art and manipulation, he soon falls into oblivion, and some new artist supplants him in the minds and hearts of the people. Harkon Lucas, from the classic setting, was a wolf-were who aspired to rule among men. A wolf who lives among lambs. Coming from Comir in Forgotten Realms, his greatest dream was to become a powerful king of a vast and powerful realm, but his curse was the Kartakass domain. His past was marked by the influence of the masses, as an evil, manipulative, and populist bard, and his frustration was being trapped in Kartakass, a land shaped to his musical talents and lupine features, but a wild, rural, and backward place, with a decentralized government far short of his ambitions. The new Harkon Lucas maintained his ambition for power, but it gives way to an incessant search for glory, fame, and recognition, which are always denied to him in the minds and hearts of his people. His desire is to manipulate the minds and hearts of Kartakass, but no matter how great his work is, he is always forgotten and supplanted. Although the themes of Kartakass still touch on the dark fantasy of macabre fairy tales, its focus is on a more modern horror proposal, where the incessant search for fame leads to despair, corruption, vice, and ruin. Many fans, however, still cling to the old version of Kartakass, and try to integrate the new version and characters into the main's old chronology. With the proposal to maintain the classic setting and integrate the elements proposed in the new book, I would keep Harkon with his classical appearance, but I would add some elements of his new curse and incessant search for fame. Although the whole idea of Kartakass as a domain where the search for fame and glory is a central theme seems quite exaggerated to me, especially with cities that are living theaters and others with magical special effects studios. The idea of having a large school of bards and actors centered in this domain could be an interesting theme to explore, as well as adapting the themes of the sinister side of show business and fame. The old Kartakass seemed somewhat static in its plots, and the threat to Harkon Lucas' position, even if only to his ego, fame and recognition, can be an interesting and dynamic change to be added to the character. Its new version and reinterpretation with its red fiddle also gave me an idea of exploring the theme of the fiddler who makes a devilish pact to become a great musician. The Devil's Fiddler, or the legends of blues musicians who made pacts at crossroads for the musical gifts, could be interesting macabre and horror stories to inspire this character. Perhaps he made a diabolical pact to become the greatest musician and came to Kartakass to gain fame and prestige, dethroning Harkon Lucas. How will the old Wolfware react to losing his fame and position as Meister Singer to this outsider, who is also a werewolf, spreading his cursed race across these lands? This musical conflict of lupine beasts could be an interesting point to explore both versions of Kartakass. And you, what did you think of the new Kartakass version of the Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft? Do you intend to use elements from which of these versions in your narratives and games? From now on, we will resume our journey through the mists of Ravenloft. New videos about 5th edition domains will come just after the coverage of a Ravenloft domain that gained a new domain and reinterpretation in this new edition. Join us, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications, and in the next video we will resume our journey through the mist to explore the streets of Peridon, a large metropolis surrounded by mists.